Thank you, Sanjeev. I think I'm still confused. I was pretty sure it was 2012, but then some people have been telling me they've been using Postman for 10 years, and I've begun to believe that. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our second user conference. We started this conference to celebrate our users, share stories, and tell you about new products. I'm excited to share that Postman today has more than 8 million users across more than 400,000 organizations today. There are more than 2.5 million monthly active users on the platform. And our community is global. Since PostCon in 2018, we have held events across the globe to meet you. We held 3 customer summits this year in San Francisco, New York, and London. We hold regular meetups across our 2 offices in the Bay Area and Bangalore. And there is a community-driven Postman meetup happening somewhere in the world once every 3 days. Not just this, we interact with the Postman community hundreds of times a day. There are more than 200 comments on our issue trackers every single day. There are several tweets mentioning Postman on social media and other community forums every week. And our support staff handles more than 200 incoming messages every single day. And unlike most companies who only support their customers, we support our free users as well as our pro and enterprise customers. And at Postman, whenever somebody is feeling too bad about themselves, I ask them to go and read these messages. And also, whenever somebody is feeling too good about themselves, I ask them to go and read these messages. So we have a unique vantage point thanks to our community, as well as at the scale at which we are operating. And I'd like to share some numbers with you to illustrate this. So Postman users send more than 260 million requests through our app every month. Interestingly, more than half of these are operations on APIs, and 40% of these are GET requests to fetch data. These users create more than 1.5 million collections every month. We believe that most of these are for private API development, but Postman also hosts more than 200,000 public docs today. And a Run in Postman button that you can embed in your developer portal or your GitHub README is now embedded across more than 100,000 pages. Postman is at the heart of the API-driven transformation that is changing the world of software. And there are several trends driving this transformation. We have public cloud offerings from AWS, Microsoft, Google, and others that not only provide hundreds of APIs of their own, but have also made the creation of APIs faster. Among architects, microservices architecture has become the de facto standard for building large applications. And that means more and more APIs. And if you're decomposing applications along the spectrum, you have serverless technologies where every function call is becoming an API. And we also have SaaS software companies which have powerful developer platforms of their own going public at huge valuations. Slack, Zoom, and Atlassian come to mind. In fact, Gartner estimates that more than $1 trillion of spend will be towards enterprise software and IT services in 2019 alone. And we feel that APIs are the key drivers of this spend. And at Postman, we believe that APIs are the building blocks of all modern software. And interestingly, not only do APIs help bigger pieces of software, they also help establish technical, people, and business relationships. And as we dug into this hypothesis more since we started Postman, we thought about, can we actually measure this and visualize this? So we looked at the data across our millions of users and kind of built these network graphs that I'd like to show with you today. So let's look at some of these. So these networks are visualized from actual data, and the white nodes here represent users, and the orange nodes here represent Postman collections that they're working on together. And in this network, you can see that we have users belonging to several functions working together on APIs. We have people from engineering, from sales, from data science, and analysts. And we see this style often when a close-knit team is working together in producing and consuming APIs. In this graph, the purple nodes here represent teams, the white nodes represent users, and they are all working in the same organization, probably across multiple APIs. And in this graph, we have users from multiple organizations consuming the same Postman collection. So as we did this across thousands of networks, we saw that these networks can form at 3 distinct layers. Private APIs, these are the APIs you build for internal application development. Partner APIs, these are the ones that you build when you have a business relationship with external companies. And public APIs, these are the APIs that you build when you want to bring third-party developers on your platform. Interestingly, when we went and talked to teams about the existence of these networks, they didn't realize that they were present. And these networks are extremely powerful, but when you don't know about them, that can lead to a lot of challenges and issues that can come with working with APIs. And some of these you might be familiar with. So that list would include bugs in production code or governance issues that come during API design. Productivity issues or broken workflows when you're trying to go from design to production around APIs. And when your APIs are in production, then that can, these broken workflows can lead to security issues or just plain downtimes. And what we saw was that there are hundreds of tools and technologies out there, and of course, Postman provides a ton of tools to help you with these issues. But these are not just technology problems. When you don't know about these networks and you don't know about these relationships and design your processes and tools around them, it can lead to collaboration problems. And that is the fundamental root cause for all these issues that come in API development or consumption. And a big theme for us this year was to help teams solve for collaboration problems. And as we started thinking about Postman as a collaboration platform, we saw 3 areas where we could help teams and developers. The first one was to establish a common language so people can talk to each other in the right way. The second was establishing a common place so people can share and communicate about APIs together. And the third was establishing a common set of workflows and practices so you can go from design to production smoothly. So the Postman collaboration platform is enabled through 3 core constructs. The first one is a collection. You might be familiar with collections, as they are the building blocks of all tools that are in Postman. Collections are executable API descriptions, and they let you map docs, tests, anything that you work with in your API workflow, you can use collections for. And we intentionally kept them flexible. We have just a very basic opinion of them being groups of requests with additional metadata, because we saw that there are so many flavors of workflows that are out there, and having a strong opinion really limits people, and we didn't want that. The second pillar is Workspaces. So we introduced Workspaces last year to help developers create a shared real-time context for your APIs and workflows. So Workspaces allow you to work on collections and the tools on collections in real time. And just like the way you have Google Docs for your documents, you can think of as Workspaces as being analogous to APIs. And the third pillar is the APIs feature that we introduced in beta this year, and it'll be hitting general availability pretty soon. So the interesting thing we saw about Postman was that while we talked about Postman as a tool for APIs and everybody was using Postman for APIs, there was never a clear abstraction about APIs in Postman. You would either map requests to APIs or you would map collections to APIs. And we always thought about how would we introduce this and what would we introduce it for. And we could see that the API abstraction could actually help bring together all your tools and processes in a versioned way if implemented in Postman. So APIs in the current version of Postman, help you define your schema according to the description format you have. So if you're using OpenAPI or GraphQL or RAML, you can store them as first-class citizens in Postman. You can link together your collections in Postman as docs or test suites. You can also link together your monitors and mock servers in Postman. And all of these can be done across multiple versions of your API. So all these pillars support the tools that are available in Postman, and they help you to work seamlessly on your API workflow. So Postman started as an API client, and we have the best API client out there to help you work with simple APIs as well as complex APIs. You can design your APIs in Postman and build mock servers. You can build test suites and run automation tests integrated with your build pipeline in Postman. And when your APIs are in production, you can monitor them using Postman tools. We also have tons of documentation tools available for you for internal APIs as well as for public APIs. So a lot of you would be using Postman as a desktop client, but Postman is actually available across all platforms. So you can use these tools on the web. We have desktop apps for Mac, Windows, Linux. And because of our Chrome app history, we are also available, interestingly, on the Chrome OS. If you have tools on the command line that you want to integrate with Postman, you can use Newman to do that. And we also have the Postman Interceptor browser extension to bridge together your browsers with the Postman app. Not only do you have these tools, you can extend Postman and your API lifecycle with the tools that you use. So we have pre-built integrations with tools like Slack, Datadog, and GitHub. And we also have a powerful API which you can use to integrate with other in-house tools or other integrations that we don't offer out of the box. And we will be introducing plugins for the Postman app pretty soon to help you build custom code generators and provide better schema support right inside Postman. So to build these integrations or to extend Postman, you can use a ton of open source stuff that we have available on GitHub. So the Postman runtime, which allows you to run requests on the desktop app or on monitors or any other place, is open source under the Apache license, and you can use that in your own projects. The Postman Collections SDK, through which you can make sense of Postman's data format or use it to build converters, is open source. The converters that we have built for OpenAPI and RAML are open source already. And we started this experimental code gen project to create code generators from Postman to languages like PHP and Python. All of them are open source. Along with that, we also offer a ton of libraries to help you kickstart the journey to building integrations and extensions easily on GitHub. So, with that context, I wanted to share some blueprints with you that you can use in your organization and implement these practices as part of your workflow. These blueprints come from talking to the community, talking to companies who are our customers, and they are intended to be reference blueprints. You can pick some ideas from here and implement it according to how your team works. There's no one size fits all, but we'll kind of build it up over time to see how you can go from a small team to a complete workflow. So the first one is what most people would be familiar with, and we call it the developer workflow. So this is when you want to explore the API, you want to get the API, and that you can do by crafting requests in Postman or by importing an API schema or using existing collection. And this is where you're trying to just understand the API. Postman gives you a lot of powerful tools to craft more and more kinds of requests. So you can use fake data. You can have JavaScript code that can run before requests. It's kind of up to your imagination on how you want to test or work with your API. Now, once you do that, with Postman's collaborative capabilities, you can actually bring your entire team on Postman to do that with you. And that helps your entire team build a shared context that can only get richer over time. So now once you're set as a development team and you're working now into building a product, you can have multiple teams work together into going from design to production. So this is a common pattern we see where you're building a front-end application, and that's where you have the front-end developers working on one team, and you have back-end developers working in another team. Now, typically, this is a sequential process because unless the API is ready, you can't really start building the front-end application. With Postman's capabilities, you can work in parallel, and you can make sure that both teams are collaborating with each other and sharing context continuously to get to production faster. And when it comes to the integration of these two lifecycles, which are running independently, you can use Postman tools to inspect what got created through our browser extension or through our proxy tool to really see those APIs turned out the way you intended them to be. And eventually, you can integrate them with your test automation pipeline. If you have quality engineers on your team, or you have dedicated test automation pipelines, you can use this workflow to go from testing to integration with your DevOps cycle. Now, if you see, the first step here is understanding the API, which we saw the way test engineers do is scour through source code repositories, just trying to find what the API is. But with collaborative workspaces ready for you to go, they can really understand the context of the API quickly. From there, they can build test suites to take forward the life cycle and kind of add their context to Postman collections. And again, you don't have to do this alone. You can bring other test engineers along, and now they can work collaboratively with you. And you can run these tests, you can analyze these reports, and eventually, when you want to take them to your integration point, you can integrate with the DevOps lifecycle very easily with the Newman tool and the Postman API that we provide. So if you put this all together, you get this beautiful, in our view, the API-first development workflow. This is where you start with your specification in Postman, you're authoring API specs, and they are handed off to multiple teams in parallel, and your development and testing, which is often also sequential, can work together. And your development teams are collaborating continuously, and your testing teams are collaborating continuously, and they are also able to work together in the shared context between each other. And when it comes to integration of this entire suite, you can go to the deployment phase with confidence, saying that I have the exact version of the API that I wanted to deploy. The context among the whole team is known, so you don't see issues in either during deployment or when you hit production. So we've seen crazy adoption for these features this year. And today, we have more than 300,000 teams collaborating across more than 600,000 workspaces in Postman. More than 280,000 APIs have already been created since the launch of this feature in beta, and those APIs are using more than 50,000 schemas. Our build tool, the integrated tool Newman, is downloaded more than 1.2 million times a month today, more than 40,000 times a day. Not just with this growth in metrics, we've also grown as a company. So we're now in more than 8 countries across 4 continents. Postman is more than 150 employees today. We also raised a Series B funding round of $50 million this year. And of course, with all of that money, we're going to fix all the bugs and do all the features. Well, we at least fixed a few. So we had 12 major releases of Postman this year. We fixed 847 open bugs on the platform. So we track every bug on Postman publicly on our GitHub tracker, as well as our feature requests, and we closed 350 of them this year. And thanks to this, as well as our community, we were the top-rated tool on community websites like StackShare, and the top-rated API management tool on websites like G2 Crowd. So the philosophy that we have developed over Postman is towards continuous iteration of the product. And while there are tons of things coming in, there are a few key features that I'd like to highlight in this talk. So the first one, which has been probably one of the longest-standing requests among the community, we're going to be introducing bi-directional sync with source code repositories like GitHub, Bitbucket, and GitLab. Thank you. So while you'll be able to keep Postman as a source of truth for your APIs, we also know that you have other pieces of your software lifecycle living in these source code repositories, and you'll be able to sync between them seamlessly using the integrations that will be out in the future. Not only with integrations towards source code repositories, we'll be integrating Postman with API gateways. With Postman being the source of truth of your APIs and your schema files, you'll be able to drive multiple gateways while keeping in sync with how your API is behaving in Postman. For our enterprise users who are scaling up today to hundreds and thousands of developers in one team, they have expressed the need for managing them better, and we'll be introducing user group management and mapping to workspaces automatically using the user management tools that are going to be out soon. And again, for our enterprise users, you'll be able to see how these people are being productive and how your APIs are performing using the reporting feature. Now, this feature is out in beta right now, and we'll be hitting general availability soon with more metrics and more insights. And this is the feature that I'm personally most excited about. So we'll be introducing the ability to visualize your API results in Postman using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So far, kind of like I'd say in the history of APIs, our entire experience of consuming APIs in a tool has been looking at JSON data and XML data. And kind of what we saw people do, right? You're trying to make sense of those thousands of rows and hundreds of data elements. We have pretty good visual recognition systems, and we can actually have the tool do that job for us. So with visualizers, we'll be introducing the ability for you to define templates that can run on your API responses, and then you'll be able to create plots, charts, maps. It's up to you. The best representation of your API can come from you. And these visualizers will be stored as part of your collection, which means that they will be shareable and consumable instantly by everybody in your team. And not only these, but every collection or API that you build in Postman will be published. You can publish them on the Postman API network that's going to be out on the web today. So you can go to explore.postman.com and browse the current ones that we have made available. You'll be able to share your APIs, the public APIs that you create, as well as the examples of APIs using templates on the Postman API network. And these will be instantly consumable in the Postman app. So Postman is, our success and growth is something that we attribute to the community. And not only for the Postman community, but we've also been supporting other API communities and other technology communities. And we'll continue doing that through sponsorships of API conferences, as well as meetups around the world. For startups, we'll be launching a startup program later this year to help them get onboarded to the best tools on Postman. We know it can be hard when you're trying to validate a product, and we want to get you the best tools quickly and effectively. And we are also starting a Postman student expert program this year to bring the best API practices to universities around the world. We rely on your feedback to help us grow and do better. During this conference, feel free to reach out to me or other members of the Postman team if you have feedback or suggestions. If you're online, feel free to reach out to us through our GitHub tracker, our support tickets, and we'd love to hear from you. We have a great lineup of speakers for you today, covering the spectrum of APIs, collaboration, and Postman. Thank you for coming. I'm really excited about having you here.